Hello, artists! So far, we've talked about a lot of artists that were inspired by nature. The Impressionists, the Post-Impressionists, the Abstract Expressionists. But this week, we're talking about artists that are so inspired by nature that they use nature to make art, or they make art that's meant to be experienced in nature. We all live in different environments and have different plants and nature where we live, so don't worry if you don't have some of the materials that you see in this video, because our goal is to just work with what we have and be inspired by what's around us. Andy Goldsworthy is a British artist who loves making art in nature. This type of art is sometimes called land art, earth art, environmental art, or earthworks. Most of his art pieces are made without any man-made tools, just whatever he can find outside. He uses nature to create sculptures that are unexpected and sometimes look like optical illusions. These sculptures take a long time and a lot of work, but because they are in nature, they often don't last very long. Wind, rain, or animals can make the piece disappear. But to Andy, that is part of the art. He says, "My sculptures can last for days or a few seconds. What is important for me is the experience of making." He does have a special way of capturing his artwork. He's a photographer. After Andy creates these amazing works, he photographs them himself. If you want to make a Goldsworthy-inspired sculpture, first, go outside and see what you have to work with. Ask a grown-up before you pick any plants. I found this little puddle in the roots of a tree, and I wondered, could I use twigs to make a kind of roof over it? I had to break up my twigs to make them the right size. Sometimes they didn't break the way I wanted them to, but a big part of Andy's work is patience. My little art piece might not last very long, so just like Andy, I took a photo to remember it. Many of Andy's works involve arranging twigs, rocks, or leaves in a circle. Can you find any of these natural materials and then arrange them in a circle or a pattern? I used leaves and twigs and added some flowers for color. Then I took a photo so I would remember it. Andy even makes art using rain. This one will seem a bit silly. When it first starts to rain, he lies down on the ground. Then, after a little bit, he jumps up and takes a photo of the outline that was left by his body. The shape soon disappears in the rain, and eventually the rain dries and disappears too. You can make your own disappearing art using water. I took a paintbrush and a cup of water outside and painted on concrete. These designs will disappear as soon as they dry, but it is very relaxing to make some swirly lines and see how much you can create before it dries. Andy Goldsworthy has also painted with mud. Check with a grown-up before you get anything dirty. There are 2 Andy Goldsworthy sculptures in Pennsylvania not too far away from us. They're in the Sculpture Garden at Kentuck Knob in Fayette County. The artist Robert Smithson also used nature to make his art, but his work is much larger and much more permanent. His most famous work is Spiral Jetty. To make this work, he used dump trucks and tractors to push dirt and rocks into a spiral from the shore of Great Salt Lake in Utah. Depending on the water levels, the sculpture can disappear under the water. The color of the water also changes depending on the level of salt or algae. To Robert Smithson, these changes are all part of the art. Making art this big requires a lot of teamwork and a lot of planning. This is one of the plans for Smithson's artwork, Floating Island. This work was inspired by Central Park, and a tugboat pulled this island around New York City. We can't make a piece of art this big, but we can draw a plan for one. Make sure to add labels and think about what tools you'll need. Nancy Holt created sculptures and buildings that she hoped would help people appreciate the nature around them. Her most famous piece is sun tunnels. These concrete tunnels may look small when you see them in the middle of the desert, but they are 9 feet tall and 18 feet long. She wanted to make a sculpture that was free and open to everyone. There are holes in the tunnels that let light in. These holes are made to resemble constellations of stars, because Nancy wanted to bring the sky down to the earth. Can you design your own building or sculpture that celebrates nature? I tried to recreate sun tunnels using toilet paper tubes. You could also build a tiny building out of stones and moss. The artist Raku Annoy uses nature to make much smaller art pieces. He creates beautiful bugs out of plants. In his yard, he gathers leaves, petals, twigs, and other things from nature, working with whatever is in season. Then he brings it inside to create his art. You can make your own nature bugs or any animal by arranging natural materials on a sheet of paper. Raku does not use glue. He captures his art the same way Andy Goldsworthy captures his, by taking a photo. You can glue your art down to keep it, but remember that the leaves and petals will probably change color. Of course, change is part of nature and it can be part of your art. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope that it gave you some ideas for how to create art with nature.